Good afternoon, everyone. Everyone is enjoying the conference so far? Thanks for coming to this session. So today's session is top Tableau server symptoms, how to approach any simple problem that you're running into, and what are the common symptoms that you could probably run into, and how to see those logs, how you can figure out an issue, and how to resolve those issues. So hopefully you can take away something from today's conference today, with our session. So myself, I'm Ritesh McKenna. I've been with Tableau for 3 years now. Prior to Tableau, I was a customer, like many of you. Came from Glassdoor, and it's been a great journey. And I also have Zach with me today, who's from the professional services. I'm from the sales counseling, but me and Zach used to work together in ProServe as well. So Zach.
Thanks, Ritesh. I'm just going to run us through what we're talking about, sort of high level. It's a Tableau server admin, things that we normally have to do, configure new systems, support a running system, and doing upgrades. These are all cases where you run into just some common issues that we see out in the field, which is sort of what we're going to talk about. Common issues, what to do when you run into some of these things, and other options, places to get help. We're going to sort of focus on, we'll talk about a specific problem, but then run you through sort of the troubleshooting steps that we would take and places to go look for some of those solutions. The first thing that we'd want to start out with, though, is really what's our philosophy behind running a server. And Tableau is like any other enterprise application in that you just want to follow best practices. We monitor, test, plan, so that we're comfortable with these things. Follow our prerequisites when we install the process. Tableau server, specifically on Linux, tends to be very picky about having all of your prerequisites in the right order. We take backups, just like you would with any application. We test those backups, just like we would with any application. And we can monitor. We have an open source tool called Tabmon. If you don't have an enterprise monitoring tool like Splunk or New Relic, Zabbix, Nagios, any of those tools, we have an open source tool that can help you keep an eye on your server.
Does anyone in the room use these open source tools that we have on GitHub? Logshark, Tabmon? Yeah. So definitely use it. Maybe you can talk about how to automate those. Zach, can I create some automated alerts using all these, make it more simpler?
That's a great question, Ritesh. So Logshark, which is another one of our open tools that you can use to do log analysis. We'll be referring to Logshark a couple of times in this session because we use it constantly. You can set Logshark up to automatically, you could write a script that'll pull logs from your Tableau server, copy it to a machine running Logshark. Logshark can parse those logs for you and publish dashboards back to your server. So you could review just server statuses, error messages, traffic to your server, and lets you get ahead of things. So you can make your monitoring a bit more sort of predictive. That lets you then plan for the future.
Plan ahead, yep.
Yeah. Another thing that you could do with that is set on alerts. Tableau server has built-in alerting if you hit a certain threshold. Because Logshark gives you dashboards, you can hit alert on those dashboards. So that's a quick overview of what we're talking about. Ritesh, do you want to talk to us about logs a little bit?
Obviously, since 2018.2 is released, I'm sure there will be a lot of brand new installations or upgrades. We'll be covering all those sessions. So first thing first, before we jump into like installations and everything, since we are talking about the logs location, everyone should be aware of the common logs location where they're. As you can see there, one is the admin logs when you're brand new installing the Tableau server, and obviously there are like process logs as well. Tableau has like a lot of different processes, and all of these processes has a different set of location. And also the new one is the TSN log. Since 2018.2, or if you're using Linux, obviously the TSN logs also plays an important role. And then you also have the system logs, which is the window log events and all. So all these comes into picture when you're doing all this kind of a backtracking to resolve any kind of issue. So let's start with the very first. Yeah, sorry.
The last line there, in 2018.2, are you saying all the logs that were under task service logs are now under task service logs?
Yeah, logs under VisQL. That's one of the commons. You'll see like logs VisQL server, logs data server, logs Vis portal, something like that. Yeah, it's just a little bit of a name convention change, but everything is the same. So let's jump into the very first part of it, like installation when you're installing Tableau server. What kind of common issues that you can run into? The most common issues that I get to ask to troubleshoot or you might have been already facing about this, is the ports. The most common ports, and these ports are used when installing Tableau Server, is 80, and if you're using SSL, obviously 443, and there's a new port which is 8850. 8850 is used by TSM, so which is absolutely a must. If you can't use TSM, then you're not able to proceed with the installation. And then there are a lot of other ports which comes into picture. Like I said, there are a lot of other processes like SQL Server, Application Server, Data Server. These are different types of processes within Tableau which use different sets of dynamic ranges of ports. The most common issue, let's say you installed everything is running fine, your Tableau server is up and running, it ran okay for like few weeks, few days, and then you start getting issues from your users that, my request is not going in. It just keeps spinning. I'm just like seeing a blank page. Most likely, that's because there's a port exhaustion happening. So when the port exhaustion is happening, all your ports, whatever that you assigned, are being already used. And Tableau is trying to make use of the other ports, and it's not able to get the access. So how do you know that the port exhaustion is happening? Obviously, you look at the admin logs. It will give you some kind of a message that, so I'm not able to access the ports. And also your Windows event viewer logs, that will also clearly state out that I'm not able to access the ports. But the easiest way is doing a netstat. Do a quick netstat on your command, and it will clearly list out all the ports and what are all the ports that are being used in the system, and that it will clearly state out all the ports are being used. So what do you do in that case? Luckily, Tableau can accept a lot more bigger range of dynamic ports usage, so just increase the range of the ports. You can automatically increase the range of those dynamic ports. I mean, it's like what, 65,000 or something?
Yeah,
the range of ports. So there is like a lot of ports that you can use. So just increase that, and that would fix most of your ports usage.
So Ritesh, what exactly am I looking for in netstat?
The ports usage. So when you do a netstat, it will clearly list out each and every processes that is being used and what are the range of ports that it is being used, and it is being. So when it is being used, that means it's already blocked. If there are other processes which are trying to make a request, if there is a brand new, like a session request from SQL Server, it's not able to get a new port. That's why it is getting blocked. So when you increase those range of ports, dynamic range of ports, that means it will be able to establish the session.
So that's pretty cool, Ritesh. It's nice that I at least have a place to go if I'm having port issues, but I've attended these sessions. I keep hearing about JMX ports. Is that something that I need to worry about when I'm working on these things?
Yeah, so how many in the session, in the class know what are JMX ports? Does anyone use JMX ports? So again, remember we were talking about the GitHub tools like Tabmon, all those. So Tabmon does use the JMX ports. So if you don't have a use case of not to use the JMX ports, don't use it. But whenever you're using it at Tabmon, you are enabling the JMX ports, which means also you're exposing the security threat.
Are those on by default?
Those are not on by default.
Okay.
So they are turned off only if you're using Tabmon. That's when you're turned on the JMX ports. And then you can run into those issues because of the JMX ports. Cool. Good? That's clear? Next one is obviously licensing. Licensing is pretty straightforward. Obviously, if you don't have the internet connection where you can activate your licensing to Tableau Server, that requires some additional steps. But let's say everything is good in your world, you have access to the internet, and you can just enable the license without any issues, but you're still running into the issues. What are the most common issues? Again, it could be the ports. Licensing server use a couple of ports which range from like 2100 to 2700, something like that. So just make sure it can access all these ports. And the other thing is, let's say the ports are also good. Where do you even start if you get like a licensing error that you try like 10, 15 times, you just keep getting on error that you're not able to activate the license. So same locations what we showed in the first part, there is something called as tab licensing server.txt. So if you open that up, it will clearly state out what kind of an error message it could be. So the most common issue that we've been getting notified these days is the certificates. When you're activating the license, Tableau Server does import some certificates, and for whatever reason, if you don't have a if on your system, if it's not able to communicate to a particular URL, so we have a URL called as licensing.tablewsoftware.com. If it's not able to communicate, it's not able to download the certificates as well. So if that is happening, and if that is what's showing up in your logs, manually type in the URL, tableausoftware.licensing.com, and you can import the certificates, and that will resolve your issue.
Well, that sounds pretty easy, Ritesh, but I keep hearing about this role-based pricing, that my license has changed now, I don't have cores
Right.
anymore. Is that, could that run into a licensing problem?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, you all know from 2018.1, we are moving change the role-based license, so which means if you're on the core-based license and you're migrating to the new user role-based license, you could be running into issues. I mean, it's not exactly an issue, but it will look like an issue. And the biggest thing, you don't have to do anything, is just give it some time when this the whole transition is happening, when you're moving to the upgrade. So what typically happens is when you're doing the migration from the prior versions to 2018.1 or 2018.2 beyond, the migration happens, everything is good, the installation upgrade, whatever you do, it's fine, all the users are getting migrated, but the users logs in, they open up a report, it comes up as blank. Or else they try to log in, it doesn't, you can't get in login. It just keeps on saying user was not able to get authenticated. Is that what you're referring to, Zach?
Yeah, well, I know that my server probably has to do some work to switch from the old model to the new model.
Exactly. So that is exactly, you have answer in your question, which is Tableau server is doing a lot of things in the background, changing your user roles to the new user roles. And there's a specific processes which comes into picture here, which is the Viz portal. So Viz portal is part of your application server. So application has both Viz portal and also the API server. So let's say when you are running into this like blank dashboards, you're not seeing any data, you're not able to log in. So Viz portal is, like I said, it's a processes, and the location for this is the same, what I mentioned again, that will be the same. And the logs are under Viz portal. And under Viz portal, you can check what is the error message. And it will say like Viz portal is still processing or Viz portal is down. Or else you can do a quick tab, TSM, there is no tab admin anymore. So TSM status, and it will say the application server is down. The application server is down because the Viz portal is part of your application server. So what Viz portal is doing is it's converting all your users' licensing role to the new licensing roles. It's also making sure the unused license, a lot of users will become unlicensed as well if you don't do proper assign roles or plan ahead. So and specifically if they have like thousands of users, it is going to take some time to do all the conversion.
So if I'm switching roles, I should just maybe expect it to take a while and
it is going to take some time. I mean, if it's like 200 or 300 users, it's fine. You're most likely not going to run into issue. But if you're a big enterprise company moving like thousands of users, like 10,000 users for an example, it is going to take some time. So give some time, and if you want to make sure that not everything is okay, run the TSM status, and it will clearly show that the application server is down. So which means the Viz portal is doing all this logic behind the scenes. And once it is start up, you will see that when it's up and running, you'll be able to log in, and the same dashboards which were coming up as blank, or when you're getting the authentication error, you'll be able to log in and proceed without any issues.
That's only if you're migrating from core license to role-based?
Right.
If you're sticking on
Correct.
core license, none of that's an issue.
yeah, if you're sticking with your existing license,
Yeah,
you wouldn't see that
yeah.
change.
Yeah. I mean, you don't really have an option of sticking with core license if you upgrade. So as long as you're in your own existings, yeah.
We've been told you can upgrade in 2018 still continue.
That's correct, yeah. If you stay on the core model, you can upgrade, but a lot of people are moving to the new licensing model, so it's something to be aware of.
Yeah. Sure.
So on the new server, the new subscription server, there's some new roles like, for example, creator and publish or creator and publish. So how does that migration go over all the core licenses?
It is all behind the scenes, all the migration process. So you do need to plan ahead which user should be the can publish, which user should not be.
So what if that new role that exists in the old server has to go to or is it going to a different license and then I have to reapply it, or how does that work?
So when it does the migration, your license says how many creators, how many explorers, how many viewers you have. That's tied to your license key. So the Tableau server will start assigning roles starting from the top down. So the creators get assigned first. the explorers get assigned next, and the viewers get assigned after that. And then if there are more users, those revert to unlicensed. What we recommend is that you absolutely test that in a dev environment first so that you know who's going to go to which new license type, because it's usually not exactly the license that you want that person on.
Yeah.
And then you can have an upgrade plan so that once you move, you can then go set those people to where you want them to be and write a script just to automate that.
Yeah, especially if you have a lot of unlicensed users, you'll be running into the same issue. I mean, not the blank dashboards, but you can't even get in. You can't even log in.
If we are moving from core-based,
Yeah.
we're not going to the model, but we want to upgrade, what happens to those users and how that would, because as you said, licenses would have interacted with the creators, but if it's a core-based and they're not going to the new model and we upgrade, how that would be assessed?
So if it's core-based, it doesn't change.
It doesn't change?
It
It'll
doesn't.
still be
Yeah,
the
it
same.
wouldn't change. You would keep the same roles.
Okay.
I mean, everyone will be, yeah, it will be the same.
Yeah,
rules.
the roles will stay the same.
Yeah. Questions? Right, let's move. So obviously you activated the license, no issues with the licenses, all the migration is done, all your users can access the reports, and then you come into the authentication issues. The most, I'm going to, there could be like a lot more, but the most common that we see from the authentication perspective is the SAML, the single sign-on issues and all those. So from the SAML perspective, you can use like so many IDPs. From the IDP, you integrated your Tableau dashboard, and you have a single sign-on experience from there. So the most commonly that you see from the SAML issues is when you're creating these certs, make sure you don't have like any an encrypted key in it. So make sure it's not encrypted. So that, and again, the basic rule again, how to see what kind of issues you're leveraging into is coming back to the WIS portal. So like I mentioned in the previous slide, WIS portal is the one which is handling all your authentication process. That is one of the part of the processes, and that's where all the logs and all the information is there. So and when you're running into these authentication issues, what you want to do is there is a debug option. So there is a debugging level option that you can increase. So increase the debug level option for particularly to the WIS portal. That means it will clearly state line by line what is happening for each and every request. And it will give you like a very detailed message. Maybe username is not matching for whatever reason, uppercase or lowercase. In your IDP, the username could be the uppercase, and in your Tableau, it might be the lowercase. Or it's email address in your IDP, but it's the username in Tableau. That's the most common occurrence is what happens. But make sure you enable the debug option with your set commands, and then it will automatically give a lot more log information in this portal logs, and that will help you to track down the particular issue.
So I have a lot of customers that have sites, and they run multiple sites on their server, and they want to use site SAML, but it seems like I'm having trouble setting that up.
Yeah. So did anyone run into issues where you have like multiple sites and maybe just like one works, but nothing else works, the rest of the sites? So it's very common occurrence where you have like a lot of sites for obviously the benefits. But one thing you need to make in mind is, for example, when you have an Okta, when you have this multiple sites, make sure everything is like an individual URL. So every site has its like an own URL. So make sure you configure each and endpoint of that URL into your IDP. So for example, in Okta, configure all those. Let's say I have 10 sites, you have 10 different URLs. Configure all those 10 different URLs in your Okta. That will help resolve these issues. So this is the most common occurrences that you can get into. And again, the WIS portal logs will also clearly say, this URL is not specified, it's unauthenticated for security reasons, which means nothing but you did not configure in your IDP to trust this URL. Yep.
If you use Okta on some of your sites, do you have to use it on all of your sites?
Yeah. So let's say, I mean, let's say if you want users to access all the sites, if that is your use case, you need to make sure all those endpoint URLs of all the sites needs to be configured in Okta.
Maybe paraphrase. Can you have some of your sites managed by Okta with other sites not managed by Okta?
Yeah, totally. So this is what you do. Don't give all your sites endpoints. Let's say you want to do only like 2, not 8. Rest of them, don't put those 8 endpoints in your Okta. So even though user tries to go to that site through Okta, it will think it's they are not allowed to do it for the security reasons because it was not configured, and it will throw an error. So that's exactly what you need if you want users not to access. Yes, site specific SAML.
one certificate, not more than one.
Right.
So it will need both Okta, and if there is any other double authentication, that as well. So how it is possible, like in Tableau you can only implement one certificate.
Only one certificate, right?
And if you are going with Okta, and Okta requires to some settings in that certificate as well.
Yeah, you use only one certificate, but the endpoint URLs needs to be specified for all of those. It's not the certificate I'm talking about. The certificate will be the same across all Tableau server. You won't be using different certificate for different site, unless you are going with a site-specific IDP, which is different. But if you're going with Okta as your main IDP, then certificate will be the same, but you need to make sure all your endpoint URLs, every site URL is different. If you see the URL, if you go to a site, the site name is obviously there specified. So which means it's a different URL, and you need to specify those URLs. Because otherwise Tableau will think it's not coming from a trusted. Yeah.
Okay.
That explains? Yeah. The other thing is the age. Let's say your IDP is like sitting in East Coast time and my Tableau server is in Pacific time, different instances. I don't know if you have any kind of that use case. Even if it's not in different time zones, let's say if there is like a big difference of like 30 minutes, one of your IDP is running on a time zone which is later than your Tableau server, obviously that will also run into issues. Again, this portal will clearly say the token which got is expired. That's because the time zone doesn't match. Obviously, the easiest fix is to have your time zones in sync. And also, if you want to have random, if you're occurring into complaints about from your users that I've been using this for a long time, like everything is working, but randomly I do get like a login. It re-prompts, even if you're going from Okta, for example, it will show me a login screen. That also has to do with your expiration. So to satisfy those users, you can increase the duration. We have a setting for that, and you can increase the duration of your expiry token as well. That will take care of the issues.
So I have my SAML set up and working, but I like to embed Tableau in a portal, right? I'm using an iframe to show it to my users, but I have SAML working, my users have a token, they've logged in, but I still have to click for them to go to Tableau. I get this button, click to log in. Is that something that I can do something with?
I mean, that's very valid. Like how many of you in this room run into these issues? You're using like iframes, then it's not, you're not having a single sign-on experience. It will again come up with the login screen. So the reason for that is Tableau is taking care of the security for you. Even though if you forgot something, Tableau is taking care of it, which is nothing but the clickjack protection. We have something called as clickjack protection to make sure that there is no third-party users trying to hijack your session and to leverage that session. So for that, there is a command called as clickjack protection, and you can disable that. And so when you disable that, it will automatically open up your iframe without re-prompting you to log in again.
So I can just turn that off?
Yeah, you can turn that off, but make sure to have the security protocols when you set up the whole Tableau server instance. So which means you need to have a reverse proxy configured properly. Otherwise, you're opening up for a possible hack. So, yeah.
So we have disabled check and not scaling the penetration testing for Tableau. So what do we do next? Is usually right?
Can you talk a little bit louder, please?
Look at we disabled check.
Uh-huh.
Our penetration testing is failing now. So how do we override?
Yeah, so for that, in order to so whenever you disable the clickjack, obviously it's a security threat. So when you're setting up the Tableau server, did you use the reverse proxy? That's what I was talking about.
Yes, and it's possibly configured also.
So when you use the reverse proxy, it shouldn't be a threat. It shouldn't be your penetration should be passing.
So that's maybe something that we would take online. Tableau does have a security team that we try to get customer questions about security. If you want to meet with us after, we'll get your email and we'll pass it on to them and find out if there's something we can help with on
was this doing from like SFDC, or are you trying to do like from SFDC to Tableau, or do you have like an iframe embedded in some other application?
We have hypercoded in my application.
I see, okay. Yeah, we can take it offline, but when you have a reverse proxy set up, this is the exact use case when you use a reverse proxy to have your security check passed. Okay. So with that, Next, we'll move on to the next phase, which is the upgrades. Either it could be like Linux and a couple of some TSM examples, which Zach is going to take over.
Sure. Thank you, Ritesh. Yeah, so upgrades, migrations, these are all kind of similar to installs, particularly migrations, because we're installing on a new OS. So I'm just going to hit a couple of those issues. The big one that I've seen so far for Linux, migrating from Windows to Linux, is that you've installed, everything looks fine, but there's these weird issues where published dashboards that connect to data server won't connect, or you try to go download a workbook and that doesn't work, but everything else is normal. The problem is that you may have installed on a symbolic link. And this is a really, really common practice in Linux, that you install an application over a symbolic link because you want to redirect it to some other mount point or some other drive on your system. It's a really, really common thing that I've seen with clients, and I did it myself, in fact. And you just get these weird issues. The deal is you just can't install a symbolic link. Tableau internally uses symbolic links to find its binary files, and I think it's the stacked symbolic links just doesn't work for it. We do have an option at install time to redirect the default folder somewhere else. So, in Windows, you get the install screen, and it says, oh, install program files or install on some other drive. In Linux, there's a -D option so that you can redirect Tableau to install its things in some other place.
Zach, what about Windows?
Well, so Windows, again, you don't have this problem, but we still want to follow best practices to install on fast disks. So you don't want to install Tableau over a network file share, right? You want it local on either local disks or a fast SAN. This is really Linux where we see this redirection as a really common practice to install things. And if you run into this, I guess the question would be, how do you fix it?
Yep.
Yeah, you take a backup, you move that backup to a safe location, and then you reinstall. So obliterate your server, which clears off Tableau, and reinstall it. And that kind of gets me to this. With upgrades, particularly with TSM, there's a lot that's changing on the server, right? We're completely changing the way that all of the processes are controlled. We can change how you push configurations out to nodes, right? TSM is kind of a big leap for us in terms of server architecture. So we've run into upgrade issues quite a bit. We've been working through them. The upgrade software is actually quite a bit better, but it takes time to troubleshoot upgrades. And usually your quickest way to get out of an issue is to run what we call an obliterate script that comes with, it's in the packages folder when you install the binaries initially, completely cleans Tableau off of the machine.
That sounds great, but it also sounds dangerous. I heard many stories.
It's super dangerous.
It can do some dangerous things.
Yeah.
Can you give some insights about the obliterate?
What
it can do if you don't take the proper precautions?
So if you run a backup of your Tableau server, that backup is stored in your Tableau data folder. So in Linux, your var opt folder, and in Windows and program data by default. Those get completely cleared away.
What about the backups?
So that's the deal. Your backups are stored in those program locations.
Yeah.
So if you take a backup, make sure you move it to a safe location, either on that machine, maybe the root of your C drive in Windows, or throw it in a home folder in Linux, or just move it off the server.
Yeah, so if
entirely.
they're using a default folder, they should be careful.
Yeah, you should be very careful with obliterate, particularly if you've started putting production data on it. You need to make sure you grab a backup. Yes? So by default, the obliterate script actually leaves the licensing in place, which is really handy if you're trying to upgrade or you're trying to do an install and you've already been through the licensing process, but then you hit some kind of just server config issue. You can obliterate and not have to go relicense, which is nice.
Yeah, your server certs are still there.
Yeah, so just that piece though. There is an option in obliterate for it to go deactivate the license for you. So if you're trying to clean off a server, or if you're having licensing issues and you want that gone as well, obliterate does have a command line option to clear that out. Yes, question? No, we never obliterate automatically. The only way to run obliterate is to say yes 3 times. And then I think it still warns you. The idea is, for me, I'm all about time. I want my install to go fast, and if I hit a wall, I want to start over quickly, so I'm not losing time.
Yeah. The only difference is in the prior versions, you used to get like a pop-up. You want to take a backup. You're uninstalling a server. We're not giving that hints anymore. So just be careful when you're running the script.
So I'm going to keep it moving, so that, hold your question. We'll have a little Q&A time towards the end. The other thing is that the upgrade process is now different under TSM. So if you have multiple nodes and one of those nodes is not like the other in terms of versions, you're going to run into an issue. So it used to be, again, pre-TSM, if you did maybe a maintenance release upgrade, so going from a dot version to a dot version, you would upgrade your initial node or your primary node, and it would push those updates out to your endpoints. That doesn't happen anymore. So our new process in TSM is to go to each node in your Tableau cluster, install the new binaries, and then go to your initial or primary node, and then run an upgrade script when you're ready. So if you're running into upgrade processes on a multi-node cluster, make sure you've installed that new version by hand on each node. It's sort of a new process that we didn't always have to do before.
Which is interesting, because in the prior versions, many of you are still using the prior versions and might be still upgrading to the prior versions. Have you seen any issue where the version on the worker nodes is maybe showing the older version, not to the upgraded, but it's still throwing some errors, and causing some issues to the customers? So and how can they backtrack and fix that issue?
Yeah, well, I know that was something in the older versions of Tableau when it did push out those automatic updates. On Windows, you go to the control panel on one of your workers, and it would still say it's an older version, because we never actually update the Windows infrastructure around the install. So it was hard to tell if all of your versions matched. The nice thing with the new process now is all of the install folders are named with their exact version number, so you know whether or not you have the binaries.
Yeah, it won't push anymore like previous versions. So previously, you might have run into issue that, okay, my control panel, the version is like mismatching, and you did the worker installation manually, and it actually screwed up the whole installation. You have to redo the whole process again. We ran into those issues a lot of times. Yeah. So the good thing with the new version is it will force you to do the manual installation. You don't have to rely on automatic push anymore.
The other thing that we see quite a bit in upgrades is that nodes are not reachable. TSM tends to be a bit more sensitive to your DNS names or your machine names. So I've seen instances where machines will show up in DNS with their fully qualified name, so server name, domain, .com or .local. TSM will sometimes try to refer to a machine by only its machine name rather than its fully qualified name, or the other way around. It'll try to get the fully qualified name, and you don't have that in your DNS. You maybe only have the machine name available in your DNS.
Zach, what is the symptom out there? For me, I think I noticed when you stop the server, let's say you have like a 4-node cluster. I start my cluster on the primary, like TSM stop. I still see my workers up and running. So is that probably the symptom? So
you would see some kind of node communication issue. Maybe you've stopped the server successfully and you try to start it and other nodes won't start. You've installed and it started fine, but then you can't send any configurations out because the node's unreachable. The quick fix to this is to put local host files on each machine, just with those machine names, matching your IP address to your machine names and to the fully qualified machine names. Again, we've just seen that TSM is more sensitive to the specifics of your DNS environment. And it's a quick fix. Just go out there and drop a host file locally, and hopefully that'll get you past where you need to be. Always recommend going to the latest release. So this slide is actually kind of interesting. We had an issue here that we had talked about, and we realized that it was fixed in a more recent release. So when you're going to install, even if you've picked a dot version, so maybe you're going to 2018.1 because you have a rule that you like to trail a little bit to make sure something's been out in the wild, make sure you grab the most recent maintenance release, because that'll get you through install and upgrade issues that we've caught and have hopefully fixed.
So I think the most common issue, 2018.1, Zach, was the SSL issue. Can you talk anything on that?
Yeah, so when 2018.2.0 came out, there was an issue that if you had internode SSL turned on, right? Really basic feature. If you had it flipped on in Windows and you were running an upgrade, your upgrade would just fail. And it wouldn't give you any useful error message. It just would stop at a certain point and you're dead. Luckily, we caught that right away, and we released a 2018.2.1 so that we fixed it. So if you were to today even go get 2018.2 and install in Windows, you'd still have that issue. We, of course, provide it for backwards compatibility or if you're reinstalling a node and something to work. But just always grab that latest maintenance release because we fix things. We fix things all the time, actually.
Yeah, I think the other common issue have you heard about for the TSM specifically, in the TSM logs, or if you've seen that, you give a username, it doesn't start. The installation kicks off at the 6%, it gets stuck, and it just doesn't move beyond 6%. Even if you wait for like 3-4 hours, it just doesn't happen anything. And if you look at the logs, it says the user is not authenticated or not able to have like certain things. Can you just
right?
give, like, yeah.
So the user option on TSM, if you put a -u and a username there, or if it asks you for a username to log into TSM, you might need to drop your domain name on there as well. So rather than just your username, you would do your domain name / your username, or your username at your domain, because TSM is checking to make sure you're a valid user on that machine that's allowed to use TSM before it actually will go run its process.
Yeah,
so if it's getting challenged for a user from the OS, you just can provide that extra information.
Yeah.
Not
This is
all
the
systems-
most common error that we've been saying. So just keep an eye. So when your installation gets stuck below 10%, it's most likely because of this issue. So just attach the domain name before username, your service account, and that should take care of it.
Luckily, that's a quick thing to try. Another thing that we see a lot out in the field are simply permission settings. The nice thing about Linux is that Linux, if you, at install time, will create a user for you with the right permissions to put into the right groups. Windows, we still have the situation where you have to have a run as user, and that run as user needs to have ideally local admin access for the machine. It doesn't need full local admin access. We have a specific list of rules, but certainly easier if it can be a local admin.
Yeah, run as user is like really sensitive. Zach, maybe some best practices around that. Can you talk?
Yeah, so we just do see this all the time. Password expirations, if your run as user is an AD user and you have a policy for password expirations, people will just forget because it's a service account that you don't see very often. So just being aware that if you have that policy, just to check it, put a note on your calendar, hey, go update this password. The other thing we see is that run as user needs to have permissions to all of the Tableau program folders. This has been the case for forever. But we still see it all the time that Tableau is installed and for some reason a subfolder doesn't have rights. So when Tableau tries to run a process or tries to go grab an extract or something, it doesn't have rights to the folder. So just applying those permissions all the way down to your structure.
What are the common logs that they can check for these?
So logs
for
that
the
you would
run as
look at for this, TSM logs,
Yeah.
which again are sort of that new log that's in the
It will be
user
under
area.
documents under your username, whoever is running that TSM as a run as user.
Yeah.
So under
And-
TSM logs.
And in Windows, certainly in your Windows admin logs, just looking for can't access a file. And we still see these a lot, and it still is true. Every version still needs permissions on the box. So sometimes when I look at my server status page, I see that a process is down, and then I come back and I see a process is up. And this is because something called SRM is going through the server and looking for processes that are maybe taking up too much memory. So VizQL is a big memory hog. When I throw a bunch of users at it,
Zach, can you expand what is SRM maybe for general audience?
Let me go back. So SRM, Server Resource Manager. It's a process that runs on Tableau Server. It's been around for several versions. So it's basically watchdogging these processes. So if VizQL starts running up to the max memory on your system, SRM will kill it so that you don't take down the host OS and the rest of the server. If you see this kind of cycling, it could be an indication that your server needs a little more memory, or maybe it's just a really busy time of day, and the nice thing is Tableau is keeping your server up. But that's something to be aware of. Also, along with this LogShark gives you a really easy way to diagnose whether SRM is running. It has a viz built in that says, hey, SRM has been restarting these processes, and here's why. So it's, again, another reason we recommend LogShark, because maybe your users haven't noticed yet that things are getting killed. But if you start to see, like VizQL in particular, just because of how much memory space it tends to use, LogShark gives you a really easy way to identify, hey, these things are getting kicked off on a regular basis.
Yeah, there's some great sessions on the LogShark that you can attend, but LogShark has like different plugins, and one of the plugins is the SRM, and it will clearly gives you the overview of how many times like it has to kill the process because it became unresponsive and it has to restart.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a great way of seeing it.
The other thing that happens is that SRM does not have a central log location on
Yeah.
each node. Every process gets a controller log, and that's its SRM log. So if you wanted to try to track down an SRM issue yourself to see if these processes were being restarted, you have to go to every process's log folder and see if there's a log from SRM in there. There's no centralized place for it.
Yeah, for example, if you suspect VisQL, in VisQL itself, I believe there are some SRM wordings that the CPU is like 95% here became unresponsive. So those are the key words that you want to find.
So if you're trying to find out if something did happen, you need to go check every VisQL process log on every node of your machine. LogShark makes this easy because it zips it up, throws it in a dashboard, and you can see it in 2 seconds.
If you want to find it really quick, that's when you jump into the logs, or else just rely on the LogShark.
Yeah. All right, and then the last thing I want to talk about are red herrings, of which there are a few. The big thing is that our logs can tend to be wordy. We like to tell you warnings that aren't really things that you need to be concerned about. One that we've seen a lot in the new versions, I've seen this certainly in 2018.2 logs, is unable to flatten registration file or unable to find registration file, even though you licensed successfully, you registered your server successfully, and everything's running just fine. This appears to completely be a red herring. We see it a lot, but it's fine. So just ignore it. If you see that, ignore it. Don't try to chase it down. Server's running and licensed. It's just something that shows up.
So even in my UI for the admins in the room, if I log in and see the status, if some process is down, you're saying just give it some time?
Well, so process down, if there is a process down, it's not because of that registration issue. That could be something else. So again, that could be something like SRM kicking something off if you see a process down. Backgrounder actually will restart itself every 24 hours. The backgrounders just like to reset themselves. And you may have caught it in that brief moment. Or if a process is particularly busy, it may not provide a status right away if you go hit a status page in TSM. So I think my thing there is that if I see a process that has a down state in TSM, I don't panic. I give it a minute. I come back and see what's going on, particularly after an upgrade, actually. I recently upgraded a machine from 2.0, or 2018.2.0 to 2018.2.3. Once I brought that server up, things seemed to be working, but the processes were still sort of reconfiguring themselves, and I just needed to give that some time.
Some time, yeah.
So don't freak out if you see a process down. Just give it a minute, come back. If it doesn't come up, then start troubleshooting your logs.
Do we have a quick question from there?
How long wait?
So my
Minute,
experience, recent customer multi-node cluster, it was about,
It depends upon the number of nodes, number of specific custom configs that you did. So all that comes into picture.
I grabbed a cup of coffee and made a sandwich, and I came back and everything was fine. So I didn't time it, just something I saw. I was freaked out. This was my problem. I saw that some nodes weren't responding, and I'm like, I start looking at logs, and it took me a minute to step away and come back and realize, oh, it's not done reconfiguring.
Yeah, so end of the day, it totally depends upon your own cluster. If it's a large cluster with a lot of custom configs that you did on the prior version, obviously that will take more time.
So yeah, a couple of the other things that we see in logs that you really don't need to worry about. SAML logout. If a user closes their browser, SAML will try to log out, and it might point them to a logout endpoint, which there's no browser open, so we flag an error. Or maybe you don't have a logout endpoint configured. So we see these, but it's fine. It just means that the logout process didn't go exactly as planned, but these are still logged out of server. So that's pretty much not something to be concerned about. It just will pop up a lot. Another one that I've seen that I actually spent a bit of time chasing down for a customer until I realized it wasn't an issue is cross-site. So if a user has access to multiple sites and they go to their server and log on to a site and then try to grab a link to a dashboard on another site within that same server, they might get an error, and it's specifically a cross-site. Tried to access a site that they didn't have permission to, or access a workbook they didn't have permission to. This is really more an interface thing. They needed to go in their interface and go switch to the other site and then load their workbook, rather than try to just click a link to go directly to it. It's not really a problem, but I've seen these a lot in a user's log or an enterprise system log where some of that user just needs some end user training. So not really anything broken, just something that'll pop up. So Ritesh is going to talk to us about another way to run Tableau Server, and that's our online.
Yeah. So before we jump into the online migration, there are also a lot of use cases where a lot of customers, and maybe some of you in the room, where you started with the Tableau Online, and now we are in the process of moving the Tableau Online to on-prem. Anyone in the room who are in the process? Went to Tableau Online and coming to on-prem, maybe in the future. So I'll just quickly walk you through. So moving from online to on-prem is like relatively easy. Our Tableau support will also come into picture and will help you on that. All the users, everything gets migrated. Your server is up and running on your prem. But most of the times, you will see the issue, especially when you have the published data sources, where the data server comes into picture. It will throw an error saying the data server is actually pointing to a different host, which is not found on this machine. Then you might think, okay, let me download that Tableau data source with my Tableau desktop, create a local copy, and try to republish it to fix the issue. It will not allow you. It will say it is pointing to a different server. I'm not able to find that host. It is most likely because your FQDNs, you did not specify your local host server pointing out to the right host name. So when you do the migration, make sure you run this TSM or tab admin set command to point your local host to the right FQDN, and that will resolve all these issues. Anything with the authentication, anything with your the data sources. Specifically, when you have the published data sources, most likely you will run into this issue. So just keep this in mind.
So is it really, it's just that one setting, like for most online to on-premise migrations, I just really need to do that one gateway setting? And
yeah, that's the only one. It's called like gateway.public.host, and make sure your FQDN is set right for the gateway.public host. If you have like multiple hosts on the new on-prem, make sure all of those set right, and that will take care of the issue.
Well, that's cool. I mean, moving to on-premise and running on-premise servers for customers, it just seems like a lot of work and things that I need to worry about. What can Tableau do for me there?
This is the best answer. So you don't have to worry about anything. Move to Tableau Online. We'll take care of it. We'll run the server. You can worry about the other bigger issues of like how to analyze the data and how to make beautiful dashboards and all. We'll take the hard part, and you can take the fun part. So yeah, Tableau Online is great. We keep up with the server versions up to date. You don't have to worry about anything. Everything is up to date. There is no downtime. You don't have to worry about. Yeah.
There's very little downtime.
Yeah, very little downtime.
And we do publish that. We make it public on our trust site.
Yeah, very little downtime. And you're always up to date with the new versions, new features, and all that.
Nice.
There's some like help topics. Zach, do you quickly want to cover?
I can run through these.
Yeah.
So we'll hang around for Q&A after. We just want to wrap up here so that you guys can get to next sessions if you need to. So yeah, where do you go for help? I mean, the first thing I do, I'm sure we all do, you open a browser and you type, this specific thing is broken, see if anyone else has had it. That's actually really effective with Tableau Server because we have this really great community. People write blog posts about, hey, I had this obscure issue in my server. I'm going to write a blog post about it. Happens a lot. So that's always, I mean, open a browser and search is a great place to go. Our community forums are very active. So if you don't find an answer with search, if you have if you don't need the response immediately, hitting a community forum is a great place to go to post your question on tableau.com and seeing if you can get a response there. Another great thing, I use it all the time, is just the Tableau manuals that are online. It's a pretty good resource. Actually, I think a great resource. Everything we have is online there.
So what if I'm not on the current version though? Seems like the online help guide always points to me the new version. What if I'm not on the new up-to-date release or something?
It does. So by default, when you hit the manuals, well, I'm gonna do some pointing. By default, it takes you to current right here in your URL. You can actually swap that out for any version that you want. So if you're running, say, 10.4 still, replace current with v 10.4, and you'll get the 10.4 version of that. Or replace it with v 9.2, and you'll get the 9.2 version of that manual page if it existed back then. Other places you should go, so how many people have called support in the room? What's the first question they asked you? Creating a case. And the logs. Yeah. Absolutely. The first thing they're going to ask you for is the logs. We built it in. It's magical now. You still have to call support to get a case. But as soon as you get that case number, you can go to TSM, zip up your logs, and then upload right here. Upload to a technical support case, put your case number in, and the technician that you're working with will immediately see it on their screen. Guess what they do? They automatically parse it in LogShark so that when they talk to you on the phone, they know a lot about your server based on those logs and can have a conversation with it. Other places to go. So how many people, if you in the room, show of hands, if your Tableau server is down, someone can't do their job? Yeah, so mission critical application. Mission critical application probably needs a little higher level of support. Tableau has these. They're called extended and premium support. You're assigned a technical account manager who helps manage all of your cases. They can help you with things like desktop cases even, just to make sure they're getting moved along. If you have a global server network, maybe you have a European server, an American server, and an APAC server, you can get that round-the-clock support. Weekend support is also an option. Standard support doesn't give you that. If you have something that's non-standard, Tableau Professional Services.
So Zach is from Professional Services, so he's asking everyone to call in.
Professional services can come in. Maybe there's a complex script that you want to set up or something very specific to your environment. We're here to help, just for things that are out of scope with support. We also have partners that are great. We love our partners. I like to keep it close to home myself. So we have a couple recommendations for things to get to visit. There's a Linux meetup today. If you're interested in moving to Linux, we'd probably recommend that. It's an AWS specific session. We can review these after too if you want to go to them. Cloud migration would be an excellent one if you're considering a cloud migration. Also, if you're an enterprise Tableau admin, there's a user group again today, this afternoon, that would be fun to go to. And then tomorrow, there's an optimizing Tableau server for high availability. So if you're building out a new cluster and you want to make sure that if a node goes down, you're good, recommend that session. And then server tools 202 and 203, which talk about specifically our load testing tools, and we have a couple of other minor tools that are really handy for troubleshooting. Highly recommend those. Thank you so much for coming.